Hello everyone, my name's Pete and I'm still saying I don't like MMOs. No amount of enjoyment will get me to say otherwise. This video marks number 13 on my list of games to try, and so far I think I've liked most of them. If you want to see more, you can check out the rest of the playlist, and if you want to join me on the journey, then pressing subscribe is the easiest way. You're also welcome to make the list longer by suggesting games in the comments. Dungeons & Dragons Online is the second MMO I'll be playing with a D&D setting. Neverwinter had a pretty good start, but this is handled by the company that looks after Lord of the Rings Online, which I also enjoyed, so all in all I'm expecting at least a decent experience. I encountered issues straight away when I discovered that I can't use the same Standing Stones account to log in. This seems like a great way to put off potential players, as making a new account rather than there being a way to link both your games to your Standing Stones account is a bit more convoluted than it should be, just like this sentence. But I made an account anyway, and here we go. The game was unable to detect my native resolution and caused me some issues when trying to record after launching. I went to the menus to fix this and replayed the opening video that you can see here, just so I had something to talk over. It was kinda generic and mostly fine. Now let's make a character. In keeping with the structure of Lord of the Rings Online, some classes must be purchased from the cash shop. It's likely if I opened the cash shop, I'd be in for an almost identical experience. There's also an option to create a character that starts at higher level, but all the classes behind this style require a purchase. Sorcerer and Wizard, the two that I would like to have played, are listed as having a challenging rating for solo play. This sounds a little bit unfriendly to a new player such as myself, so I decide on a Ranger, which should give me a way to directly compare between this and Neverwinter. Arcane Archer sounds like an interesting variation, and now it's time to choose my race. I go with Half-Elf because why not, then I decide he should have purple hair and eyes for reasons that I will not disclose. This is because there are no reasons. I can give my character a first and last name. It won't accept me splitting Pete Smells across the name boxes, so I just go with one word first name, and away we go. Slapped into the game world, I find that I'm shipwrecked. A rogue who was poking around the wreckage shouts at me continually to speak to him, so I approach him and punch him in the face. This is by accident, and it's because the interact and attack functions are both bound to left click. This feels a bit jarring right now. After a brief conversation, I need to follow Jeets to his camp where he promised me a weapon. Moving around is WASD, but there's no strafe keys bound right now, and that makes me slightly uncomfortable. On the way, a narrator is speaking to me. They're talking over the characters too, and it feels like an argument between what I should listen to. Jeets makes good on his promise and gives me what he calls a bow and some arrows. In my inventory, I find a crossbow and bolts. Honest mistake, I guess. In return for his generosity, I'm to do him a favour. I need to deliver a message to one of his companions in a nearby cave, and I'm ushered on by the narrator as I try to navigate the inventory screen. Everything's a bit small and the amount of text on the tooltip windows is large. I'm not getting used to the fact that every left click is an attack unless my cursor changes for context. Each click is probably also costing me a crossbow bolt, which aren't infinite, so I'll need to be careful or I'll be out of ammo. Despite this, I'm still clicking on all the barrels and crates to shoot and break them. They have a chance of dropping potions or small amounts of copper, and honestly I just love that. At the end of this pathway is the entrance to my first dungeon, shown by the glowing swirly things near the door. Just inside I can see Jeets' companion, Selamus, waiting. The narrator asks if this is the Selamus I was supposed to find, and because she's questioned it, now I am too. Is it a really common name? Is that an imposter? No, it is in fact who I'm looking for. She wastes no time in enlisting my help and exploring deeper in the cave, and is kind enough to cast a spell on me that temporarily shields me from death. I assume this is a one-off plot spell because that sounds really unbalanced. I was given a lot of dialogue options that I basically ignored, but it's nice that I had the choice. Right now I need to get this gate open, and to do so I must climb over the wall that the gate is barring, defeating the point of the gate. Before I do this, I alter the key bindings to become a little bit more comfortable, and altering key binds isn't a problem. Now for my first enemy encounter, and it went like this. Attacks are unclear on success, and I don't seem to have much control of aiming. There's a dice roll simulation at the side of the screen, but for the most part, what happens visually is hardly connected at all to what I'm pressing. I open the gate and the other two characters, Selamus' companions, finally show up. There's a bit of interaction between them before we head deeper into the cave. We arrive at a large door, behind which we'll presumably find the enemies. The cleric barks her orders to the parties, assigning me with the task of opening the door, and we charge through, only to find there's nobody here. Then we get ambushed. The combat feels odd. I'm doing damage and I'm managing, but it just doesn't feel nice to play right now. Maybe I just don't understand it yet. We kill several waves of fishmen and try to proceed, only to find the exit is locked. It turns out the key is, rather conveniently, under the water underneath us. Inconveniently, the other three characters all have an excuse not to go swimming. A perfect way to force a swimming tutorial. And it all works fine. I pick up the key and we continue on. In the next hallway I learn about rest shrines. They come in pairs and one restores health and spell points while the other one revives fallen party members. And naturally I fire my crossbow at them when trying to inspect. The rogue and I scout ahead a bit where he disarmed a trap, and informs me that anyone can learn rogue skills from the correct trainer, and this makes me wonder about how progression works if it's not linear to your class. We fight some more and we're rewarded with a treasure chest. Upon opening, there's an assortment of level appropriate loot and an option to spend some kind of gem on re-rolling the loot. I have a sneaking suspicion that this is a purchasable item or currency. I hope the reward equipment boosts my damage output, or that the enemy health is scaled around there being a party of 4, because right now my DPS stands for damage per Saturday. I have a slow rate of fire and it's not very impactful. One of my rewards was a new armor piece. Equipping it seems to have a long activation timer for some reason, something which only happens here and never again. Further still into the cave, and I'm taught how to use the search ability to scan the environment for things. This time I reveal a secret doorway, and I wonder how many other things I can find in the world. Searching is modified by my character's intelligence score, and it's something I'll be keen to increase. The chest I opened gave me a new bow, which I'd already equipped at this point, and since then there's been no combat, and now I'm awarded another better bow. This seemed odd at first, but now I realise that I could have chosen any weapon from the rewards list, and considering I don't already have a melee weapon, I probably should have. Here we exit to the village, and it turns out that the people here have been under threat from these fish monsters for a long time. I like this plot consistency. I'm being told a cohesive story, and that's important to me. I'm not entirely sure where I fit into things, aside from being a helpful stranger who got shipwrecked, but I guess that's not too important right now. I speak to the NPCs near the village entrance, and one of them helpfully informs me that I'll need to bind myself to a tavern nearby. This means I'll revive here if I die. There's an option to ask for directions to the spirit binder, but I choose to search for myself. Another NPC seems to be placed here with the sole purpose of offering players a chance to skip this particular story arc. I like accessibility stuff like this. It gives players both old and new choices, and choices are important. The next person has a chalice over her head, which indicates they have a quest. She asks me to investigate the noises coming from the Hayton crypt nearby, and hopes that I'll find the last remaining Hayton family member inside too. Most alive people aren't found in crypts, but I'll do my best. I then found a bunch of trainers that revealed a comprehensive set of skill trees, and I couldn't help but notice that the music here keeps lagging and restarting. I found the tavern and bound my spirit, and then I collected a few side quests off the townsfolk. Now I'm off to find an old scroll in a spider-infested storehouse that will apparently aid the village in their time of need. I like this option upon entering instances. It lets me select difficulty. It looks like the harder ones are scaled for parties, and it even tracks which ones you've cleared at higher levels. Having the option to do them solo is perfect for me for my own reasons, but also kind of necessary because there's not many players around. I break some barrels, fight some spiders and some zombie rats, and then I realise I need a melee weapon so I don't waste ammo on these boxes. I'm going to break them, just in a less expensive way. For now though, I'll need a key to unlock this door, which I ironically find in a box that I break. Then I'm attacked by a fishman who rather rudely breaks through a wall. He has a red name, which means he's a tougher enemy, and he wants the key that I just found. The place he came from has a big statue of a mouse with a mouth inside. It's kinda creepy and completely irrelevant. The key opens the locked door to reveal a floor tile puzzle. I didn't expect that, but a change from the standard killing is very welcome. At first I was confused, but when I noticed the line of light, it was a very simple puzzle. I guess it's to teach me the mechanics for when the harder stuff happens later down the line. I also managed to get my hands on a sword, and I waged war on the remaining breakables. The next quest saw me engaging in wave defense to stop the Devourer cult from destroying a crystal that is important for a reason that I missed or wasn't told. During this fight I start to get more comfortable with the combat, and while it still doesn't make a lot of sense, I can work with it. I also learned that items have durability and need to be maintained. This is something I'll definitely forget. And here I'd like to point out some numbers. I have 47 health and 20 spell points. These are perfectly reasonable numbers for being level 1, and they make sense. My damage is hitting for less than 20 each time, and seeing this be the case just makes me so confused about games like Elder Scrolls Online and Neverwinter having massive numbers. With the crystal kept safe, it's time to do the first thing I was asked and inspect the crypt. I first bought some arrows to find they don't stack above 100 per slot, whereas bolts go up to 1000. I'm not sure why that would be, but there it is. I also gained my first active combat skill, which I put proudly on the hotbar and then forget about for a long time. I head into the crypt and am greeted by the crypt keeper, who's convinced that the cult and the Sahagin, the fishmen, are going to kill everybody. He makes no objection to letting me investigate and opens the gate. In the hallway there are many broken and empty sarcophagi, and I think I know where this is going. I'm encouraged to use my search ability. The minimap shows a path on the other side of this wall, but my search yields nothing. Maybe I'll need to increase my skill first. I also noticed that I have 20 different hotbars available to me, which will cater to many playstyles. Further in I find some cultists hunched over a corpse that's come from one of the sarcophagi. They spot me and attack, and the kind dungeon master suggests that I should investigate further. I reach a branching path and I'm keen to find the dead end so that I don't miss anything, but there doesn't seem to be an obvious right way. I find a couple of chests in the corridor, one with a sword for dealing with zombies and one with a mace for dealing with skeletons, and this is a neat way to cover enemy resistances. Obviously this was setting up to face undead dead from the start, and this is a great way of implementing a tutorial. I interrupted some kind of ritual and broke an altar. The altar dropped a seal of some kind, and I do this again in another room and get a second seal. Then I come across a magic barrier which requires 3 seals to break. I take the branching path in the hallway and come across this chest with a trap shooting harmful substances at it. I learn that I can loot the chest whilst out of range of the trap and pat myself on the back for being so clever. I follow the corridor further to find that it brings me out near the entrance via the secret passage that I couldn't reveal before by searching. I get the last seal, fight the red named boss, and I'm off to report my success. Well, partly. I didn't find any living Haytons in there. After handing this information over, the kindly narrator tells me that my presence is requested in the tavern. I'm starting to like this narrator. I head to the tavern and I'm told that I'll be part of an ambush to catch a traitor, as one of the townsfolk has been working with the Devourer cult. Apparently they want the tavern keeper dead, so I will take the tavern keeper's place and deal with the traitor. This takes place as another wave defense setup as the traitor, Drexelhand, flees into the basement. After the fighting, I follow him down there through a secret passage, which I think is secret passage number 10 already, only 90 minutes into playing, which is typical D&D and I love it. While picking up loot, I'm spending 0 time reading and comparing stats. There's so much text for each item and there's no fast way of telling which is better. I know that needing this kind of system is a bit lazy, but I'm shaped by my experiences and I cannot help it. Another example of this is when I'd find and take down Drexelhand. I'm a little disappointed that there's no shortcut out of the cave, so I walk all the way back to find that I actually need to press the finish button at the side of the screen to get out, and this function will serve as my shortcut every time from now on, which is nice. I'm back in the tavern and being showered with gratitude. Apparently with this traitor out of the way, the village can start to fight back against the menace of the cult and the fishmen. I speak to another NPC who gives me a quest which involves nothing aside from making a purchase from the cash shop. I take a look, and whilst I am already able to afford the item in question, using this method to force people over to the store is a bit heavy-handed and largely unnecessary since the cash shop is advertised in the login screen. I completed this quest either way, but it added nothing to my experience. I then get given 2 quests in a row that involve rescuing kidnapped townsfolk, which strikes me as an unusual coincidence. And then it's time to go out into the wilderness. Apparently someone knows where Hayton actually is, and he's the key to ending this threat to Korthos. He's hiding in something called a manufactory. My other quests are in that direction too, so I head to the gate to leave, and I get to choose my difficulty here too. Entering the wilderness gives me a warning that I'm in a combat area and a private instance for me and any party members. This isn't a normal MMO setup, but now I realise I might be playing a different kind of game. Maybe this doesn't fit the usual description of an MMO and shouldn't be in this series, but I've gotten this far and I'm going to continue. The wilderness looks like a sort of overworld hub that contains entrances to various dungeons. It's actually quite pretty out here, and I'm given a list of miscellaneous tasks to complete alongside my quests while I explore. The 3 objectives I have are killing a set number of enemies, discovering locations, and experiencing rare encounters. This is similar to Guild Wars 2, but it has a secondary place rather than being tied to progression. An NPC nearby tells me about a great beast underground that the fishmen are trying to awaken, and asks that I help keep him asleep. I accept and see on my map that the entrance is nearby, and I go to investigate. The dungeon is a short one, but a decent one. There's a mixture of puzzles and combat, and it also teaches me about elemental resistances by throwing an ice mephit and a frosty spider at me. I get another floor tile puzzle to solve, and even a chance to see the sleeping beast, and yeah, I'd rather not fight that. The handy dandy finish button warps me out of there and I can continue on my journey. The other dungeons scattered around all feel the same. It's a nice balance of combat and non-combat challenges with a sprinkling of dungeon master narration and a nice short adventure told in 30 minutes or less. Wandering the wilderness starts to inspire a genuine sense of adventure in me, and I realise that all the things that confused me at first have come together to form a rather relaxing and enjoyable experience. I make my way to the manufactory and I log out to take a break. Upon returning I find I've been warped back to town. This makes sense, and it's not a long journey back. The manufactory itself is a longer experience. Apparently it's also where the Warforged were made. Here there's plenty of places to make use of the search ability, and there are a few things that I couldn't quite manage, like unlocking this cage. After taking down another magical barrier, I come across this ominous looking pool of water. Assuming there's a challenge involved, I brace myself. Here we go. Oh, never mind. I find Hayton and he gets mad that he lost at hide and seek. Unfortunately, I took down his magic barrier and now the fishmen can also find him. We engage in more wave defense and I stand back to use my bow as it does more damage. My decision backfires when Hayton gets overwhelmed and dies, and I fail my objective. Interesting. Usually these characters can't die and there's no real urgency. I'm placed at the start of the dungeon and I have to do it again. I get back to Hayton and decide to get my sword out and soak some of the damage. This time he lives and he begrudgingly accepts to help drive the Devourer cult and fishmen away for good. Apparently he has information on the cult having a dragon on side, but the dragon isn't there by choice, it's being controlled by a mind flayer. This all sounds very intriguing. The finish button gets me out of there and I decide to go exploring a bit more. This wilderness is much bigger than I expected and there's so much to see. I stumble upon the entrance to another one of my side quests and it's all the way down here, and I have to look around for a safe way down. When I get there, I'm placed in a very small dungeon. I fight some undead, and these frozen adventurers burst out as zombies, and that's pretty awesome. There's another magic barrier I have to dispel, and at some point Drexelhand, the traitor I killed in the tavern, comes back as a zombie to exact revenge. Obviously there's a necromancer involved, and this just adds extra layers to the cult, and who might work for them, and how far their reach might be. Once I'm done here, I use the recall function to return to Korthos village. I get given some rewards for the work I've done so far, and report that Hayton will help. He's already provided me with further instructions and I'll do that soon, but at the moment I want to figure out how to level up. I'm still level 1 and when my experience bar fills up I gain a rank, not a level. I speak to my trainer who informs me that I can level up as whatever class I please. I don't know if it's that simple, but I'll figure that out some other time. For now, I'm happy to keep going as an arcane archer, so I increase some skills and I finally reach level 2. When I first started I was almost certain I wouldn't like this, but I've ended up being drawn in. The combat felt weird at first, but now I don't really notice. The controls felt unintuitive, but after an hour they've become really easy to use. I didn't like the constant narration from the dungeon master at the start, but now I kinda like the idea that what I'm doing is all part of a greater story. There are subtle things at work here that I can't quite put my finger on, but I really like it. If I had any friends, I'd check out how the difficulty scaling works, and also see what would be possible with a varied array of skills throughout each dungeon. I've still got some more games to play and the list keeps getting longer, so if you're looking to hear this idiot's thoughts on more game openings, then there's the subscribe button if you want to. And if you don't like my opinions, then I just don't know what I'll do. Please put your suggestions in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.